There are two faces to every faith, one that the world speaks of, argues over, codifies in books and courts, and another that lives unseen in the depths of the heart. Islam is no different. What is usually mentioned are its outward garments, rules, rituals, obligations, and visible forms. These are necessary, for without form the spirit would have no vessel. Yet there is another, Islam, seldom spoken of, for it cannot be reduced to words. It is not the Islam of debates and divisions, but the Islam of the hidden heart, where the soul bows in a silence no one hears. This hidden reality does not deny the outer path, but breathes life into it. Without it, prayer is only motion, fasting is only hunger, and pilgrimage is only travel. With it, every gesture becomes a spark of eternity. To understand this inner Islam is to see that surrender is not simply the bending of a body, but the dissolving of the self. The form is a shadow. The essence is the light that casts it. One can perform 1,000 rituals and remain asleep, while another may awaken in a single moment of pure remembrance. Think of the heart as a mirror. With neglect it grows dull, showing nothing but shadows of passing illusions. But when polished through remembrance, through silence, through yearning, it begins to reflect the light that has always been shining. The work is not to add anything new, but to remove the dust that covers what already is. Just as a sculptor carves away stone to reveal the form hidden inside, the seeker removes veils until the radiant truth appears. This inner way shifts the meaning of every act. Prayer ceases to be the counting of cycles and becomes the immersion of presence. A single breath, filled with the awareness of the divine, may outweigh years of inattentive worship. Fasting ceases to be only abstaining from food and becomes the discipline of turning away from pride and arrogance. Charity is no longer just the giving of wealth, but the giving away of illusion, of the false belief in ownership. Even pilgrimage is not only a journey to a distant sanctuary, but the unveiling of the sanctuary within, where the beloved has always dwelled. The hidden Islam is a path of intimacy. It is not satisfied with surfaces, with forms, with the noise of argument. It calls the seeker inward, into a silence where the self surrenders, and this surrender is not loss, but discovery. When the drop falls into the ocean, it does not vanish into emptiness. It discovers its own vastness. When the self bows before the real, it does not become nothing, but becomes everything in union. This is the surrender that lies beneath the word Islam. The surrender no one mentions, the surrender of the inner being. Why is it so seldom spoken of? Because it cannot be legislated, cannot be debated, cannot be turned into politics. It escapes every attempt to grasp it. Books can describe its shadows, but the taste of it belongs only to the one who drinks. Those who have known it often remain silent, for speech only diminishes it. They walk quietly among the noisy, carrying in their hearts a secret too vast for words. And yet this secret breathes in every ritual, waiting to be uncovered. Every bow and prostration, every whispered verse, every fast and every charity is an invitation to step beyond the surface and touch the essence. The outer path protects, disciplines, and guides, but it is not the destination, it is the doorway. Beyond the doorway lies the hidden chamber, the sanctuary of the heart, where the true Islam dwells. The hidden heart of Islam is not far away. It is as close as the breath you take now. Each inhale can become the remembrance of the One. Each exhale, the return to the source. The pulse of the heart is not only blood moving through the body, but the secret rhythm of eternity, echoing in flesh. If one listens deeply enough, The unspoken recitation reveals itself, a remembrance that has never ceased since the beginning. To live in this awareness is to see the world itself, as scripture, the bird in the sky, the stranger's smile, the stone on the path, all become letters in the infinite book. The cosmos is a Quran unfolding at every instant, but the eye must be polished to read it. With each veil removed, another verse appears, until one begins to see that everything is the face of the Beloved, concealed and revealed in endless forms. This is the Islam that no one mentions, not because it does not exist, but because it cannot be captured. It cannot be confined to words, nor owned by any group, nor reduced to any system. It belongs to the unseen, to the silence between breaths, to the heart that remembers what it has always known. Surrender is a word often misunderstood. Many hear it and imagine defeat, submission to force, or the loss of freedom. But in the hidden truth of Islam, surrender is not weakness, but awakening, not slavery, but release. It is not about bending under the command of an external power. It is about dissolving the walls of the self that keep one exiled from the infinite. True surrender is like a river flowing into the sea. The river does not lose itself, it fulfills its purpose, finding the vastness it always sought. The silence between words reveals this secret. When speech ends, when thought rests, when the restless tide of desires begins to calm, one tastes surrender. It is not an act of will in the ordinary sense, but a yielding, a letting go, a falling into the arms of what was always holding us. In this silence, surrender ceases to be about doing and becomes about being. The outward form of religion trains the body to bow and obey, but the inward path unveils the bowing of the soul, the prostration of the heart that melts into its source. This surrender cannot be measured, cannot be counted, cannot be shown to others. It is as hidden as the fragrance of a flower that cannot be seen but fills the air with sweetness. The self, the ego, the little I that clings to ownership and control, resists it. The self thrives on separation, on being something apart, but surrender is the dissolving of this illusion. It is the realization that there is no apartness, that the river and the sea are not two. To surrender in this sense is not passivity. It is not abandoning life or turning away from the world. It is living fully, but without chains. It is speaking words, but with silence beneath them. It is acting, but without the grip of ownership. The one who surrenders becomes like a flute, through which the breath of the divine plays. The music does not belong to the flute, yet without the flute, it could not be heard. In this lies the mystery. To surrender is to become empty, but in that emptiness flows the fullness of the infinite. Humility is the fragrance of surrender. The one who yields to the real does not need to prove, to boast, to dominate. Such a person may walk unnoticed among crowds, yet their presence soothes like cool water in heat. Poverty of the self becomes their wealth. They own nothing, yet possess a treasure greater than kings. Their strength does not come from what they grasp, but from what they release. By letting go of the small, they inherit the vast. This surrender is hidden in the practices of Islam, but rarely spoken. The bow in prayer is an image of it. The fast is a training for it. The pilgrimage is a symbol of it. But the essence is not in the act itself. One may bow 1,000 times with the body, while the heart remains unbent. One may fast for years, yet remain intoxicated with ego. One may circle the Kaaba and never step inside the sanctuary of surrender within. The real act is inward, the yielding of the self into the embrace of the real. Silence is the doorway. In silence, the self loses its illusions of control. Words cannot hold the infinite. Thoughts cannot define it. Only when they fall away does the presence reveal itself. In silence, one discovers that surrender is not something to achieve, but something always already here. The very act of breathing is surrender. The inhale is a gift. The exhale is a returning. Life itself is a rhythm of receiving and releasing. The seeker who awakens to this sees surrender woven into every moment. The world often misunderstands this hidden Islam. To the mind bound by power, surrender looks like weakness. To the ego bound by pride, humility looks like poverty. Yet in truth, this surrender is the highest strength, the deepest freedom, the greatest wealth. The one who surrenders no longer fears loss, for nothing can be lost when all is already the beloved. No longer do they cling to praise or fear blame, for their heart rests in the gaze of the one who never changes. This is why those who taste surrender carry a light unseen by others. Their silence speaks louder than words. Their humility radiates more than crowns. They do not argue about faith, for faith has dissolved into certainty. They do not compete for power, for they have found a kingdom without borders. They live in the world, but are not bound by it, like birds that move through air yet are not captured by it. Surrender is the secret that makes the outward path alive. Without it, religion becomes a shell, a lifeless repetition. With it, even the smallest gesture becomes luminous. To drink water with gratitude, to walk with awareness, to breathe with remembrance, these become acts of worship beyond measure. The one who surrenders finds the real, not in some distant realm, but in every moment, in every breath, in every silence between words. This is the Islam no one mentions, the Islam of surrender that does not seek to conquer, but to dissolve, that does not enslave, but frees, that does not diminish, but completes. It is not about bending the body to an outer command, but about releasing the heart into the embrace of the infinite. And in this embrace, silence becomes speech, emptiness becomes fullness, and the self discovers it was never separate from the real at all. The world is not what it seems. To most eyes, it is a collection of separate objects, events, and lives, each appearing and disappearing without connection. Mountains rise, rivers flow, stars burn, hearts beat, and all appears ordinary. Yet for the one who begins to see with the eye of the heart, the world becomes more than surface. It becomes a veil, a mirror, and a sign. It conceals and reveals at once, hiding the infinite in forms, yet hinting at its presence in every detail. The hidden truth is that the cosmos itself is a garment woven to both cover and disclose the beloved. Every tree, every face, every stone, every grain of dust is a verse in an endless scripture. Some verses shout, others whisper, but all together form the book of existence. When one reads only with physical sight, the words seem scattered, but when one reads with inner vision, a secret order is unveiled. The world becomes a Quran, written in mountains and oceans, in the flight of birds and the silence of deserts. This dual nature of creation is the mystery of the veil. The veil is not merely an obstacle, for through it, the beauty of the real is displayed, just as a thin curtain allows light to pass, while softening its glare. The world both hides and reveals, were the infinite to shine upon creation. Without veils, the intensity would dissolve all forms in an instant. Yet, through the veil, the eye can behold signs, the ear can hear whispers, the heart can sense fragrance. The veil is mercy, not absence, but most remain veiled by the veil itself. They see only the garment and forget the body it conceals. They mistake the shadow for the source of light. They take the forms of the world as ultimate, unaware that each is a signpost pointing beyond itself. The flower is not only a flower, it is an echo of divine beauty. The storm is not only chaos, it is a mirror of divine majesty. The child's laughter is not only sound, it is a reflection of divine joy. To those who awaken, every instant becomes a revelation. To see in this way is not to abandon the world, but to inhabit it differently. One no longer clings things as possessions, for one sees them as gifts, passing through the hands of the real. One no longer despairs at loss, for the giver remains, even when the gift departs. One no longer worships the veil, for one has begun to perceive the face behind it. Life becomes less about accumulating and more about unveiling, less about control and more about witness. This vision transforms worship itself. Prayer becomes not only words recited, but a dialogue written into the very fabric of existence. The rising sun becomes a call to rise in gratitude. The setting sun a reminder of return. The seasons become teachers. Spring whispers of renewal, autumn of surrender, winter of silence, summer of abundance. The cosmos becomes a mosque without walls, where every corner, every moment, every breath can turn into a place of remembrance. Yet this unveiling requires patience. The veil is thickened by distraction, by greed, by arrogance. The heart must be polished to perceive what lies beneath. Remembrance is the polish. Love is the solvent. Humility is the lens. Slowly, the dull mirror begins to shine. Slowly, the seeker learns to see the face of the beloved reflected in every form. At first, glimpses come and go. Then, the vision deepens, until even veils are recognized as signs, even absence as a form of presence. The paradox is that the world both hides and reveals at the same time. For the heedless, it hides endlessly. For the awakened, it reveals endlessly. Two people may look at the same sky. One sees only clouds, the other sees the infinite canvas of the real. Two people may walk the same street. One sees only strangers, the other sees countless faces of the beloved. The world has not changed, but the eye has. The difference lies not in what is seen, but in how it is seen. This is the meaning of the saying that the real is closer than the jugular vein, yet hidden from the blind, nearer than near, yet unseen until the heart awakens. The veil does not separate us from the divine as a wall separates rooms. It separates us as sleep separates the dreamer from waking. The moment of remembrance is like opening the eyes. What was always here becomes visible. The world remains, but one sees it bathed in a light that was hidden before. This unveiling is not constant for most. It flickers like lightning behind clouds, sudden and overwhelming, then gone. But each glimpse leaves a mark, a longing, a certainty that changes everything. The seeker begins to live between two worlds, one of forms and one of meaning, one of veils and one of unveiling. Slowly the balance shifts, until even the veil itself is seen as part of the revelation. For in truth, the beloved hides only to be sought, veils only to be unveiled, conceals only to draw forth longing. To see God in all things is not to deny the world, but to affirm it at a deeper level. The cup is still a cup, the hand still a hand, the stone still a stone, but each becomes a sign, a reminder, a disclosure of what cannot be fully shown. This vision does not strip the world of meaning, but fills it with endless meaning. Nothing is ordinary anymore, for every particle becomes a window. Nothing is empty anymore, for every silence becomes full. Nothing is far anymore, for every step becomes nearness. This is the world as veil, the world as mirror, the world as revelation. To those who remain asleep, it is only matter, only chance, only surface. To those who awaken, it is a vast tapestry woven by the hand of the beloved, concealing and revealing at once, calling the heart with every breath, every shadow, every glimmer of light. If the world is a veil and the heart a mirror, then love is the secret that brings them together. For all the debates about law, all the disputes about authority, all the arguments about history, there remains a silence at the center, a truth rarely mentioned. Love is the essence of Islam. Without it, the path becomes dry and brittle, a shell without spirit. With it, even the smallest act becomes luminous, a gesture of intimacy between the soul and the beloved. Love is not an ornament to faith, not an extra, not a soft decoration for an otherwise stern reality. It is the fire that gives light to every lamp, the bowing of prayer, the hunger of fasting, the journey of pilgrimage. All of them find meaning only when filled with love. To bow without love is to bend like a lifeless reed. To fast without love is to hunger without sweetness. To walk without love is to wander without direction. Love is the inner compass that turns every outward form toward the real. This love is not like human attachment, which clings and fears loss. Divine love is vast, ungraspable, and yet closer than the breath. It is the current that moves every atom, the rhythm that beats in every heart. One cannot create it by force, for it is already there, hidden beneath veils of forgetfulness. The task is not to manufacture love, but to uncover it, to allow the heart to remember what it has always known. For in truth, the soul was born in love, before time, before space, before the world. The soul knew the beloved in intimacy. The descent into this life was a veiling, a forgetting, but the echo of that primordial encounter remains. It whispers in longing, in yearning, in the ache that nothing in the world can satisfy. People chase wealth, power, beauty, pleasure, but each pursuit ends in disappointment, for none of these can fill the silence where only the beloved fits. That restlessness, that hunger, is the trace of forgotten love. When love awakens, the world itself changes. The same sun rises, but now it shines with tenderness. The same stars glitter, but now they twinkle like eyes filled with affection. The same faces pass on the street, but now each carries a reflection of the beloved. Love does not erase the world, it transfigures it. The ordinary becomes sacred, the fleeting becomes eternal, the finite becomes a doorway to the infinite. This love asks nothing and gives everything. It does not demand proofs, for it is its own certainty. It does not bargain, for it is pure generosity. It does not bind, for it frees the lover from every chain, except the bond of intimacy. In its presence, fear dissolves, pride collapses, separation melts. To be in love with the real is to be consumed and yet completed, to be lost and yet found, to be annihilated and yet made whole. The path of love is hidden because it cannot be controlled. It resists the rigid categories of law and the sharp lines of argument. It flows like water, taking every shape, but belonging to none. Those who walk in love cannot be captured by power, for their allegiance is not to human authority, but to the beloved alone. This makes them both invisible and dangerous. Invisible because they do not seek attention, dangerous because their freedom cannot be bought. Yet love is the secret at the heart of every act of worship. The Quran speaks not only in commands, but in invitations, not only in warnings, but in promises of mercy and intimacy. Behind every verse of fear lies a verse of tenderness. Behind every command, a gesture of love. The Prophet himself is remembered not only as a teacher of law, but as a mercy to the worlds, a mirror of love walking among humanity. Those who truly follow him do not imitate only his actions, but his compassion, his gentleness, his boundless love for the real and for creation. Love is also the bridge between human and human. To love the real is to see the real in others. How can one harm another when each face is a veil of the beloved? How can one despise another when each soul is a reflection of the same light? Love expands the heart until the whole world fits within it. The boundaries of tribe, nation, and sect dissolve, and what remains is the recognition of one breath, one origin, one destiny. But this love is not sentimental. It burns, it consumes illusions, melts attachments, and tests the heart with longing. The lover suffers, for absence sharpens desire, and distance deepens yearning. Yet this suffering is sweeter than worldly pleasures, for it keeps the heart awake, alert, alive. The lover would rather ache in longing for the beloved than be numb in forgetfulness. To love is to bleed willingly, for every drop of blood is a testimony of devotion. And when union comes, even for a moment, all pain vanishes. A glance, a touch of presence, a flash of intimacy, and the world dissolves. Nothing remains but the beloved, and the soul knows it has returned home. Words cannot describe this union, for words belong to separation. Only silence, tears, and the trembling of the heart can bear witness. This is the secret no one mentions, the hidden essence behind all the forms, the truth that gives life to Islam itself. The outward path disciplines, instructs, and guides, but without love, it is a body without a soul. With love, even the smallest act shines brighter than rituals multiplied 1,000 times. A single tear shed in love may outweigh a lifetime of dry recitation. A single breath sighed in longing may be more than countless vows, for love is the real itself, flowing into the heart, and when the heart responds, it completes the circle. This is the forgotten union, the center of the path. To remember it is to awaken is to love is to live, not as a separate self, but as a flame kindled by the fire of the beloved, burning, illuminating, consuming, and yet never consumed. The path is often imagined as a long road stretching across deserts and oceans, with distant milestones and hidden destinations. Many believe they must travel far, spend years in hardship, and accumulate countless steps to reach the real. But the hidden truth is that the journey is not measured in distance, for the one we seek is already nearer than near. The path is not to arrive somewhere else, but to awaken here, to discover that the destination has always been within the traveler. This is the paradox no one mentions. The seeker sets out, thinking the beloved lies ahead, far away, waiting at the end of trials. Yet each step, each hardship, each longing eventually reveals that the beloved was never absent. The distance was only a veil woven by the self. The journey was not toward the real, but away from illusion. What is called return is not movement through space, but the unveiling of what is never left. Consider the breath. Each inhale is a gift from the real. Each exhale, a return to the real. The entire path is contained in this rhythm. One need not climb mountains or cross seas to taste union. It is here, in the silence between breaths, in the pause where nothing separates the lover from the beloved. To awaken to this is to see that the journey is without distance, and that what we seek is seeking us. In every moment, the illusion of distance comes from the self. The ego imagines itself as separate, as a small island cut off from the vast ocean. From this illusion arises longing, struggle, and the sense of exile. But the moment the self loosens its grip, the moment it yields, the ocean rushes in. The drop realizes it was never apart, only dreaming of separation. The awakening is not a new union, but the remembrance of a union that has always been. This realization transforms the meaning of striving. The outward effort remains. For discipline and practice polish the mirror of the heart, but one no longer strives as if chasing something far away. One strives to uncover, not to acquire, to awaken, not to reach. The bow in prayer, the hunger of fasting, the silence of meditation, all become ways of peeling back the veils, of softening the hardness of forgetfulness, until the truth shines through. The practice is real, but the destination is already here. The journey without distance is also a journey without end, for even when one awakens, the unveiling deepens infinitely. Each moment reveals more of the beloved, more intimacy, more beauty, more majesty. Just as the ocean cannot be exhausted by the thirst of a single cup, the real cannot be exhausted by the vision of a single heart. The closer one draws, the more infinite the horizon becomes. Nearness itself becomes endless, and the lover never tires of longing, for longing is the sweetness of life. This is why the path is both stillness and motion, both completion and endlessness. To awaken is to know that there is nowhere to go, for the beloved is here. Yet to love is to journey forever, for the beloved is infinite. The paradox cannot be resolved by the mind, only lived by the heart. In this paradox lies the secret joy of the path, to rest in union while moving endlessly in love. The seeker who realizes this walks through the world with new eyes. Nothing is ordinary anymore. The call of a bird, the rustling of leaves, the laughter of a child, the silence of night, all become reminders. Each moment is a meeting, each breath a prayer, each encounter a sign. Life becomes not a search for meaning, but the recognition of meaning shining everywhere. The real is discovered, not in some faraway sanctuary, but in the cup of water, the glance of a friend, the beating of one's own heart. The world continues with its noise, its struggles, its illusions of separation. People chase shadows, build empires, argue over forms. Yet the one who awakens lives among them with quiet certainty. They do not need to escape the world, for the real is present within it. They do not need to prove anything, for love speaks without words. They do not need to arrive anywhere, for they know they have always been at home. Their life becomes a flowing presence, like a flame that illuminates without striving. The journey without distance is the unveiling of intimacy. It is the recognition that the real is the ground of every breath, the source of every heartbeat, the secret behind every veil. To live in this awareness is to live in endless return, not because one ever left, but because one awakens again and again to what was always here. The path is not about becoming something new, but about remembering what one has always been. This is the real Islam. No one mentions, not a distant quest, not a heavy burden, not a conquest of lands or debates, but a quiet awakening to the nearness of the Beloved. It is the path of surrender that reveals itself as completion, the path of longing that reveals itself as intimacy, the path of travel that reveals itself as stillness. It is the journey without distance, the return to the home we never departed, the discovery of the source within every breath, every silence, every heartbeat. Every path that begins must circle back to its origin. The seed falls into soil, vanishes, and then rises again as tree and fruit, only to drop another seed. The river flows from the spring to the sea, and from the sea the clouds return it once more. The breath enters as gift, departs as return, and then comes again. Nothing in creation travels in a straight line forever. Everything moves in circles, in cycles, in endless return. So too is the hidden reality of Islam. What appears to be a journey forward is in truth a journey back, a return to what was always the beginning. The human soul carries within it a memory too deep for words, the memory of its origin in the presence of the Beloved. Life itself is the unfolding of this memory through veils of forgetfulness. We wake, we sleep, we hunger, we love, we suffer, and beneath all these movements is the longing to return. The path is not about reaching something new, but remembering what was lost, unveiling what was hidden, circling back to the intimacy that never ended. This return is not a repetition of the past, for the circle of the spirit is not a flat circle, but a spiral, ever deepening. Each return brings us nearer, even as we find ourselves where we began. It is like walking through a garden again and again, but each time with clearer eyes, deeper love, greater presence. The garden is the same, but the one who beholds it has changed. So the eternal return is not a cycle of sameness, but a deepening embrace of the real. The signs of this return are everywhere. The day rises from dawn, travels through light, descends into night, and is reborn again. The moon waxes, wanes, disappears, and reappears. The body is born, matures, declines, and returns to earth, only to give rise to new life. Even the galaxies spin in circles, as if the entire cosmos were remembering its source in endless rhythm. To see these cycles with the eye of the heart is to recognize that Islam itself is this surrender to the circle, this yielding to return and worship too. The pattern is revealed, the bowing and rising of prayer, the hunger and feasting of fasting, the leaving and returning of pilgrimage, all are echoes of the eternal rhythm. The seeker bends, rises, bends again, until the body itself learns the truth of return. Each prostration is a reminder that from dust we came, and to dust we shall return, but also that in bowing to the real we rise into eternity. What appears to be a fall is secretly an ascent, for every lowering is an approach to the ground of being. Love itself follows this circle. The lover longs, seeks, weeps, calls, and then tastes union. But union does not end longing. For love is infinite. The circle turns again. Absence sharpens desire. Desire opens to union. Union deepens into new absence. The lover never tires, for the circle itself is the sweetness. To love is to live in endless return, where each departure leads to reunion and each reunion births new longing. The heart becomes the axis around which the circle spins, endlessly turning in remembrance of the Beloved. This return does not erase suffering, but transforms it. Pain becomes part of the rhythm, a shadow, that intensifies the light, just as winter deepens the sweetness of spring. Sorrow deepens the joy of reunion. Every loss, every absence, every silence is not an end, but a turning of the circle, a call to remember what abides beyond all change. To those who awaken, even suffering becomes a veil that conceals and reveals the mercy of return. The mystery of the circle is that it has no edges. One can walk forever and still find oneself near the beginning. Yet within this endlessness lies peace, for the one who accepts the circle ceases to struggle against the rhythm of existence. Instead of clinging to permanence or fearing loss, the awakened heart flows with the turn. Joy and sorrow, presence and absence, birth and death, all are embraced as movements of the eternal dance. The circle frees the soul from despair, for what departs will return, and what is hidden will be unveiled again. This is why remembrance is the core of the path. To remember is to return. Each repetition of the divine name is not the same as the last, but a turning of the spiral, a deeper approach, a nearer unveiling. The lips repeat, the tongue moves, but the heart travels inward, circling closer to the source of the sound. The act may seem small, but in truth, it is participation in the cosmic rhythm, a tuning of the self to the music of return that sings through the stars and the seas. When the final return comes, when the body falls silent and the soul departs, it is not the end, but the completion of the circle. What seemed like death is another birth, another unveiling, another step deeper into the intimacy of the real. Just as the seed must break for the tree to rise, the body must return to dust for the spirit to return to light. To fear this return is to misunderstand it, for it is not exile but homecoming, not loss but fulfillment. The eternal return is the secret Islam no one mentions, the hidden rhythm beating beneath the forms. It is the circle traced by stars and hearts, by breath and prayer, by love and longing. To awaken to it is to live without fear of loss, without clinging to shadows, without despair in absence. It is to see every moment as a turning, every silence as a sign, every ending as a beginning. The circle turns, and in its turning, the soul discovers that the journey was never away from the beloved, but always within the embrace of the beloved, circling endlessly, endlessly returning. The soul is drawn toward silence, as the moth is drawn toward flame. Beneath the noise of thought, beneath the clamor of desire, beneath the endless chatter of the world, there is a silence that is not emptiness but fullness, not absence but presence. This silence is not mere quiet, for quiet can still be empty. This silence is the hidden ground of being, the sanctuary where the real speaks without words. To step into this silence is to enter a mosque without walls, a sanctuary without boundaries, a prayer without beginning or end. In silence, the heart awakens. The mind may protest, restless and anxious, but the heart knows. It knows that silence is the language of intimacy, the place where lover and beloved meet without veil. Words create distance, for they divide and separate, but silence unites. In silence, the heart does not ask or demand, but simply abides, tasting the nearness of what cannot be spoken. This is why the prophets sought solitude, why the saints withdrew, why the lovers of God vanish into quiet deserts and caves. It is not escape, but return. Return to the soundless voice that has always called within. This silence of the heart is not found by force. It cannot be grasped, captured, or manufactured. The harder one tries, the more it slips away, like water clutched in the hand. Silence arrives when one ceases striving, when one lays down the weight of the self. It comes not as conquest, but as gift, not as achievement, but as grace. One can only prepare the ground by stilling the tongue, softening the breath, loosening the grip of thought, and then wait, with humility and longing, for silence to descend. This silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of the real. Even when the world roars, even when voices shout, even when storms rage, silence can remain in the heart. It is a stillness deeper than noise, a calm untouched by chaos. In this silence, the seeker discovers that the real is not far, not delayed, not hidden in some distant realm. The real is here, nearer than thought, closer than breath, shining through the very silence that holds all things. To live in this silence is to be free from fear. Fear thrives on noise, the noise of tomorrow's worries, the noise of yesterday's regrets, the noise of endless stories the self tells itself. Silence dissolves these stories, strips away illusions, leaves only presence. In presence, fear has no soil to root in. The heart that abides in silence no longer trembles, for it rests in what cannot be lost. Silence becomes a fortress without walls, a shield without weapons, a home without doors. This silence is also the birthplace of love, words of affection, poems of longing, cries of devotion. All are echoes of the silence that holds them. True love does not need to speak, for the beloved already knows. So too with the real. To sit in silence before the beloved is to offer the purest love. No argument, no justification, no plea, only presence. The lover sits, the beloved shines, and the silence between them becomes union. In silence, the world itself is transformed. The trees no longer stand as mute objects, but as verses of a sacred book. The river's murmur becomes a hymn, the wind's sigh a prayer, the stars a vast recitation. The heart that lives in silence hears this hidden music everywhere. What others dismiss as ordinary becomes luminous, for silence uncovers the sacred pulse in every leaf and stone. To walk in this awareness is to dwell in a living scripture, a revelation written not in ink, but in light and shadow, sound and stillness. The one who finds silence carries it everywhere. In the market, they hear the call of the real. In the crowd, they see the face of the beloved. In hardship, they taste the mercy behind the veil. Nothing can shake them, for silence anchors them in what does not change. They may speak, laugh, work, and move among others, but beneath it all is stillness, a secret sanctuary within the heart. This is why those who know seem calm, radiant, unshaken. They are not immune to sorrow, but sorrow cannot drown them, for they float upon silence, as a ship upon the sea. Yet silence is never final. It deepens endlessly. Just when the seeker thinks they have reached the depth, a deeper stillness calls. Just when they think they have grasped it, it slips away, leading them further. Silence is infinite, because the real is infinite. To live in silence is to dwell in endless unveiling, endless intimacy, endless return. The heart opens, then opens more, then opens again, until all boundaries dissolve. The seeker discovers that silence was never empty but overflowing, not barren but fertile, not void but fullness. This is the secret few mention, that silence is itself a form of Islam, a surrender beyond words. It is not silence as refusal, but silence as union. To bow without speech, to love without asking, to exist without defense. This is surrender in its purest form. The self fades, the real shines, and nothing remains but presence. In this silence, the circle of the path completes itself again. Surrender becomes love. Love becomes remembrance. Remembrance becomes silence. And silence becomes union. And the circle turns endlessly, endlessly. The heart longs for light, yet it is often through darkness that the deepest light is unveiled. Night covers the earth. Shadows stretch across valleys and mountains, and the sun withdraws from sight. Yet in that absence, the stars reveal themselves, infinite, patient, silent witnesses to a hidden majesty. If there were no night, their beauty would never be known. So too with the soul. It is often in its darkest nights that it discovers the radiance of the real. The path is not free from veils of sorrow. The seeker tastes loss, exile, loneliness, despair. The mind questions, the body weakens, the heart aches. These veils may seem to obscure the beloved, but in truth they are part of the unveiling. Just as the pupil of the eye must darken to see, the heart too must sometimes pass through shadow to behold what light alone could not reveal. The darkness does not deny the real, but prepares the soul to receive the real in new depth. Those who awaken learn not to flee from shadow. They sit within it, breathing slowly, letting the weight of night settle upon them. They do not curse their sorrow, nor do they cling to it. They let it be, and in that stillness, they begin to hear a voice beyond voice, a whisper that cannot be silenced. The beloved speaks in the dark with tenderness the day could not hold. What feels like absence becomes intimacy. What feels like loss becomes guidance. The night unveils a light hidden from the day. This mystery is known in the heart's seasons. Joy blooms like spring, fierce and fragrant. Summer ripens with abundance, full of warmth and laughter. Then comes autumn, when leaves fall, when colors fade, when the chill of loss creeps in. Finally, winter arrives, barren, silent, unyielding. Yet without winter, spring would not return. Without barrenness, new life could not be born. The circle of the seasons is the circle of the soul. Each darkness is womb, each silence is seed, each loss is preparation for return. The lover of the real does not resist this rhythm. When joy comes, they receive it with gratitude. When sorrow arrives, they embrace it with patience. When silence deepens, they bow into it, for they know that the beloved is present in all guises, in laughter and in weeping, in fullness and in emptiness, in light and in shadow. To reject one is to blind oneself to the other. To accept both is to see the beloved shining everywhere. This is the hidden Islam no one mentions. Not merely a surrender in ease, but a surrender in hardship, a yielding in shadow, a bowing even when the heart feels broken. To lay down oneself not only in the sunlight of blessing, but in the night of trial. This is the true surrender. In this surrender, the heart learns a secret, that the real is not only the source of light, but the source of darkness too. The night is not an enemy, but a veil, and behind it, the same beloved shines. Through this, patience becomes more than endurance. Patience becomes vision, the ability to see through shadow into the light it conceals. When others despair, the patient one waits, for they know the circle always turns. The seed buried in soil is not dead, but waiting. The silence of winter is not abandonment, but preparation. The night sky, vast and black, is not void, but infinite fullness. Patience sees what the eyes cannot, that every darkness carries the promise of dawn. Love, too, deepens in shadow. In the sunlight, love is joy, tenderness, sweetness, but in the night, love becomes longing, yearning, burning. Absence teaches the lover how precious presence is. Loss teaches the soul how infinite the beloved's embrace truly is. The more the heart is broken, the more space it has for the real. The cracks are not flaws, but openings, windows through which light enters. The lover discovers that their own fragility is the vessel of divine intimacy. The awakened heart no longer fears sorrow. It no longer hides from night. It learns to walk with both light and darkness, knowing that both are teachers, both are signs, both are veils of the beloved. In joy, the heart sings. In sorrow, the heart remembers. In silence, the heart waits. In all things, the heart surrenders. This surrender becomes a lamp that never goes out, burning even in storms, shining even in night, guiding the soul endlessly home. And so the circle turns once more. Light becomes shadow, shadow becomes light. Joy gives way to sorrow, sorrow deepens into joy. Presence yields to absence, absence blossoms into union. The heart learns that it is not the shifting of seasons that matters, but the constancy of the beloved within them. To live in this truth is to live free, to walk without fear, to bow without hesitation. The seeker ceases to seek elsewhere, for the real is present in all states, in all veils, in all seasons. The journey is not escape but embrace, not fleeing from shadow but finding the beloved shining through it. The journey of the soul is not only surrender and silence, not only love and longing, but also the unveiling of oneness. The seeker begins by seeing separation everywhere. Self and other, light and dark, life and death, world and creator. These divisions seem absolute, yet as the path deepens, they begin to blur. The closer the heart draws to the real, the more it discovers that the boundaries it clung to were only shadows. The river and the sea are not two. The flame and its light are not two. The lover and the beloved are not two. At first this oneness appears in glimpses, a moment of prayer where the self fades and only presence remains, a moment of love where the boundaries between hearts dissolve, a moment of awe where the world shines as if made of light. In those flashes, the seeker tastes unity. But then the veil of duality returns, yet each glimpse leaves a mark, a memory too strong to deny. Slowly the heart learns that these glimpses are not exceptions, but revelations, hints of the truth that has always been. Oneness is not an idea, but an unveiling. The mind cannot contain it, for the mind divides. To the mind, oneness is a riddle. How can two be one? How can the infinite and the finite embrace? How can the drop and the ocean be the same? But the heart does not ask. It sees that the drop was never apart, that the ocean was always within, that the separation was only a dream. To awaken from that dream is to dissolve into reality, where all things shine as expressions of the one. This unveiling is both overwhelming and intimate. Overwhelming because it dissolves the self, shatters the illusion of control, strips away every mask. Intimate because it reveals the real not as distant majesty, but as the breath within breath, the pulse within pulse, the life within life. The seeker does not lose themselves into nothingness, but into fullness, discovering that what they thought was their small existence is in truth the vastness of the real. Such oneness transforms how the world is seen. What once appeared as fragments now shines as unity. The stranger's face is no longer foreign, but a reflection of the same light. The earth beneath one's feet is no longer mere dust, but the body of the beloved. Even sorrow and joy, even death and life, even gain and loss are seen as threads in a single tapestry, woven by the hand of the real. To live in this vision is to walk in constant remembrance, not by force, but by perception, for the beloved is seen everywhere. Yet this oneness is not possession. It cannot be grasped, for the moment one claims it, the veil returns. The ego may say, I have attained, but in that moment, it is once again separate. The secret of oneness is humility, the surrender of even the claim to knowledge. The awakened heart knows nothing, claims nothing, holds nothing, and in that emptiness, it becomes a mirror, perfectly reflecting the infinite. This realization does not remove the forms of life. The seeker still eats, drinks, works, prays, loves, weeps, but within every act is awareness of the one. Prayer becomes not a call to a distant throne, but a turning inward to what is already present. Love becomes not attachment, but recognition of the same light shining through another form. Even the simplest breath becomes sacred, for each breath is both gift and return, both inhaling the mercy of the beloved and exhaling one's own surrender. The unveiling of oneness also brings compassion. When the heart sees that all beings share the same source, the walls of judgment fall away. The suffering of another is no longer distant, but felt as one's own. To harm another becomes unthinkable, for it would be to harm the beloved. To love another becomes natural, for it is simply loving the beloved in another form. This compassion is not duty, but recognition, the natural fruit of seeing the real shining everywhere. Still, the path of oneness is endless. Just as silence deepens without limit, unity unveils itself infinitely. Each veil that falls reveals another. Each unveiling opens to a deeper one. The seeker is never finished, never complete, for the real is boundless. What seemed like union becomes only the threshold of a greater union. What seemed like vision becomes only the beginning of greater sight. The circle of unveiling turns without end, and the heart rejoices in its endless journey. This is the secret no one mentions, that Islam in its deepest essence is not about separation, but about union. Not union as erasing the world, but union as seeing the real in the world as the world. It is the surrender that dissolves duality, the love that unveils unity, the silence that reveals fullness. To awaken to this is to discover that there was never two, never distance, never exile. There is only the one, eternally present, eternally near, eternally shining through every form, every breath, every heartbeat. The soul moves toward annihilation, though the word frightens many, to the self. Annihilation means death, loss, the end of being. Yet in truth, annihilation is not destruction, but unveiling. It is the falling away of illusion, the dissolving of the false self, the melting of the shadow, so that the light may shine unhindered. What is lost is not the essence of the soul, but the veil that obscured its essence. What is revealed is not nothingness, but the fullness of the real, brighter and more intimate than anything the self could imagine. The seeker begins by clinging to identity, to desires, to beliefs, to practices, to the image of themselves as seeker. Even devotion becomes another veil when it is claimed by the ego. Slowly, through surrender, through trials, through love, these layers begin to peel away. The more the self resists, the more suffering it creates, until at last, it learns to let go, and in letting go, it discovers annihilation, the freedom of being nothing, the freedom of disappearing into the beloved. This annihilation is not the end of life, but the end of separation. The river does not cease to exist when it reaches the sea. It becomes sea. The flame does not die when it merges with fire. It becomes fire. The lover does not vanish when consumed by love. They become love itself. So too with the soul. When the false self is annihilated, what remains is not emptiness, but the real shining through, unclouded, unbound. This state cannot be described, for language belongs to separation. Words divide into subject and object, I and you, here and there. In annihilation, there is no division, and so no words can capture it. The poets and sages speak in metaphors, wine and intoxication, fire and burning, ocean and drowning. Yet all metaphors fall short, for the reality is beyond speech. It can only be tasted, lived, surrendered to. The paradox of annihilation is that it leads to true life. What the self fears as death is in fact awakening. The ego resists, for it thrives on control, on claiming, on permanence. But once the ego dissolves, what remains is a life unbound by fear, a life flowing with the eternal. This is why those who taste annihilation return with joy in their eyes, serenity in their hearts, compassion in their hands. They are no longer bound by themselves. They are vessels for the beloved. Annihilation also unveils subsistence. When the false self falls away, the true self abides in the real. This abiding is not temporary but eternal, for it does not depend on the shifting sands of the world. The body may age, the world may change, forms may vanish, but the essence abides in the one. The seeker discovers that what they thought they were losing was never real, and what they thought they could never keep was always theirs. This truth transforms how one lives. The annihilated heart no longer clings to outcomes, no longer fears loss, no longer strives for recognition. It moves with humility, serves with love, speaks with gentleness, not because it tries to be virtuous, but because there is no self left to defend, no illusion left to maintain. Only the real acts through them, and their life becomes a stream flowing effortlessly toward the sea. For others, such a one appears ordinary. They walk, they eat, they laugh, they weep, they live in the same world. Yet everything they touch carries a hidden fragrance, everything they say carries a hidden light. They do not claim holiness, do not boast of vision, do not set themselves apart. Their presence itself becomes the teaching, their silence itself becomes a reminder. Those who draw near to them feel their own hearts stirred, as if a window has been opened to a deeper sky. The path to annihilation is not quick, nor easy. It is a stripping away, a burning, a continual yielding. Each layer of self resists until it dissolves, and each dissolution feels like loss. But those who persevere discover that each loss is mercy, each burning is purification, each disappearance is unveiling. Slowly, the seeker realizes that nothing real is ever lost, and nothing false can remain. The annihilation becomes not terror, but sweetness, not loss, but freedom. This is the secret few mention. But the final surrender is not into death, but into life, not into emptiness, but into fullness. Islam, in its hidden core, is this annihilation, the giving up of self into the beloved, the dissolving of the shadow into the light. To live in this truth is to live already beyond fear of death, already beyond the illusion of separation, already within the embrace of eternity. The self falls away, the real remains, and the lover at last becomes one with the beloved,